We're very excited to have Eric Schmidt here at Seoul National University. Let me give you a quick introduction. Dr. Schmidt is an entrepreneur, an internet strategist, and developer of great technologies. He served as CEO of Google for over a decade. He transformed Google from just a startup company to a global corporate giant with $150 billion market capitalization and more than 20,000 employees. And here's something that we all envy. I did a little bit of research about Mr. Schmidt. He is one of the few who became a billionaire based on stock options alone, earned as an employee. He was neither a founder nor related to the company in any way. He has passion for talking to students, which is why he's here today. He lectures at Stanford University. He owns a huge boat. And he's interested in ocean research. He's also a commercial pilot, and he flies his own jet. And as we all know, he's a philanthropist and a visionary, and we've shared that with his new book, The New Digital Age. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to present to you Dr. Eric Schmidt.
Thank you very much. Well, it's fantastic to be here. What's not to like about Korea?
That's right, and that's my first question, actually. When news came out yesterday of Google's donation of the Hangul Museum, many were grateful, but at the same time, a lot of us were a bit surprised that a foreign company would jump in with such a grateful idea.
It's not a foreign company, it's Google.
It's Google, that's right. Okay, good. And this is your third visit to Korea, and you have so many projects going on with Korean companies and the government. My question is, are you in love with this country?
I personally really like Korea. and let me tell you, let me tell. Korea is the best union of technology and style as a country that I know of.
Okay. Well, what do you see as...
Well, my good friend Cy Park.
Yes.
Combined with the incredible technology that are built in it does not get better than this.
What else do you like about Korea?
Well, let's start with the energy. Let's start with the educational system. Sorry. Let's start with the intensity. I think you have a phrase for it in Korean. It's rush, rush.
Yes, bali, bali.
Yeah, bali, bali. And there's something about the Koreans that it makes you feel that Koreans will make something happen. Right? That whatever challenges your country faces, you will overcome them, as you have over 50 years. Korea is the best example of development from literally the ravages of war 60 years ago to a global superpower of wealth and style and creativity in the world. And I think congratulations to all of you are in order.
Well, what do you see as Korea's potential vis-a-vis Google's future?
Well, first place, when we started, and I started coming here 5 or 6 years ago, I was not sure what was going to happen to Google in Korea. The language was different, the search was different, the networks didn't work together, the mobile phones were incompatible, the phones that you used in Europe wouldn't work in Korea. There were many, many reasons why Korea seemed like it was its own peninsula, its own culture, different. And in those 5 years, a lot of things have changed, but perhaps the most important thing has been the rise of mobile computing. As I was coming in here, every single student, every single faculty member has their mobile devices. Everyone is taking pictures with them. You live online, right? That change is a profound change, and Korea is the leader. You're also the leader in bandwidth. And so if you're someone like myself, what do you care about? You care about mobility, your best, and bandwidth. You have the fastest internet in the world. What's not to like about Korea?
Well, you have outlined how the new digital age will be reshaped in the future? In a nutshell, I know we don't have much time, so in a nutshell, how do you see the world changing and where do you think Korea fits in that big picture?
There is an excellent Korean translation of my book with Jared Cohen. I encourage you to buy it at the bookstore. But I just had to get that.
Yes,
It is a university, people read. You know, the big story is not Korea's success now. The big story is that the world you have experienced will now become possible for the rest of the world over the next 5 or 10 years. And so when you travel from world to world, from country to country, and you see how poor most people are, how difficult their lives are, and then the mobile phone arrives. And that mobile phone is their education, it's their entertainment, it's their news, it's how they stay safe, it's how they police deal with corruption and the corruption of the police, the terrible things that happen to women in those societies. They're all fixed or helped by the arrival of mobile computing. So that's, I think, the biggest story. And for most of these people, governments will fight it.
Yes.
They won't want a free and open internet. They won't want people to have new ideas. They like people being kept the way they are. That is a crime in my view. People should be free to hear all points of view, and they can decide. Koreans have decided just fine. You have a strong commitment of democracy and openness here. It should work in Africa, in Indonesia, in Southeast Asia, in China, right? It should work there too.
How about North Korea?
Well, I visited North Korea earlier this year, and by the way, it's really cold there. Okay, Seoul is a lot warmer, trust me. And I think it's very important to try to help the North Koreans. They are proud people. They are hungry. They do not have enough energy, and they're very, very closed. Everything that you can do on a humanitarian basis to help them with food, with knowledge, with learning, with connectivity, I would encourage you to do that. I think it's a good thing for you to do. It's a good thing for the world to do. And I believe that opening up North Korea, the DPRK as they like to call themselves, with respect to connectivity is a good first step. Just getting the information into the country will make it safer, more productive, a better neighbor, a better outcome.
Did you relay that message to the North Koreans? Did they accept it?
Yeah, well, with the North Koreans, they listen very carefully. They write everything down, okay? So they write everything down. Actually, I should say that the meetings always started with a speech. And the speech was always in reference to the respected leader and how excellent the respected leader was and how important the local initiative was from the standpoint of the leader. And I think it was probably the same speech they gave to every visitor. And then we would discuss things, but they would be very careful not to agree to anything. And I think because they had to check with the respected leader.
Okay. Well, so today's event is about how to prepare for what's next and for the benefits of the students and entrepreneurs here. Any practical advice or messages you'd want to offer?
Well, I think that the first place, I think the future for South Korea is good, because the countries that remain technically sophisticated, focused on business, focused on making the world a better place, that work hard will do better than the ones that don't. I also think that it's important that South Korea develop more of a software industry. If you go back to the history of your country, there's fantastic decisions made 20 years ago, 30 years ago, 40 years ago in shipbuilding, in cars, right? In all of the classic businesses. Steel, very impressive. Obviously the Samsung story, the LG story, consumer electronics, all of that. These are great stories. The future, every single one of those businesses will have a significant software component. The technical term is called big data analytics. Every one of them will make better products, better services. Indeed, this university, National University, has created a big data initiative with a number of faculty to do precisely that. So I would say that the future is good, and it will be even better with more software people here from the university and in the country.
You tend to stress innovation and invention, and I've seen some of your interviews in the past. Could you give us an example of each? For example, I was thinking invention, a driverless car. What's going to happen with Hyundai? Do you have any plans with Hyundai?
Well, we've talked to Hyundai, and we've actually talked to all of the car manufacturers. Our driverless car still has a driver in it. So the driverless car, there's a little button that you can press that says, "I want to drive now." And we're still working on the technology. It's not completely foolproof yet, but we're close.
Okay.
But I think it's some number of years. It's not 1 year. Maybe it's over the next 5 years or something like that. It's on the order of that to perfect the technology.
Any other example of invention that you think will be happening in the near future?
Well, we are very interested in the Google Glass project.
Google Glass,
because we've never had a situation where people could interact real time. There are many Android partners that are building watches, for example, that do this. And I think most people believe that the future is the Internet of everything. That when you walk into your home, all the devices will talk to each other, the devices that you carry will talk to those devices, everything can move around. This is an area where Korea as a country should be a significant leader because of the extreme sophistication of microelectronics manufacturing and so forth that's present in this country.
Well, speaking of Android, I have to ask you this question. Many of us are wondering, now that you have a new lover, Motorola, are you going to get rid of the first wife, Samsung?
Absolutely not.
There's a lot of instability here. Feel very unstable.
I won't comment on your analogy, but let's just say that, and I have told Samsung and LG and so forth many, many times, the goal of Google is to create a powerful ecosystem that serves many, many customers and is the #1 platform for developers and mobile power. We have achieved that objective. We now have more than 1 billion users of Android. We are shipping about 1.5 million phones are turned on per day, if you can imagine that. It's an extraordinary number, much, much bigger than our friendly competitor from Apple. And much, much, much bigger than our friendly competitors from Microsoft and a few others. So our strategy in conjunction with the leading Korean companies has worked extremely well. And we have promised all of them to maintain a level playing field, to treat everybody equal, including Motorola. So the answer is no to your question.
Good. What is the biggest innovation on the horizon in your view?
Well, there are many, but the one that I like the most is if I were in school today, I would like my computer to help tell me what I should know, what I should be thinking about, where I should go for partying tonight, all of those kinds of things. And we're going from a situation where we ask the computer a question and it gives us an answer, to having the computer have more intelligence about the world around me. In my case, here I am in Korea. I want my phone to be constantly updating me about information, this history of this university, the important issues in political discussion. What are the business problems in the country? What's fun going on tonight? Who are the new pop stars in K-pop? Because frankly, they look young to me.
They all look alike, by the way. I can't tell the difference.
I didn't say that. But I want to know which one is the next great export, right?
Yes.
And I don't want to have to ask Google. I want Google to just kind of tell me. By the way, right?
Can Google in the future tell you who to love, whether to love, or date?
Well, there are companies, not Google, but other companies that are attempting to work on that. I think that it's fair to say that there are limits to even what Google can answer. And if you look at computers, computers are very good at memory. They're very good at needle in a haystack problems. They're not as good as we would like them to be in what we would say is the creative and the caring economies. So creativity, the kind of, again, the culture, the incredible art and design. We're talking about North Korea. When I landed in Pyongyang, I was actually struck at how beautiful the buildings were. They're Koreans too, right? Now those buildings, by the way, were built in the 60s and 70s when their economy was growing and before their current. They have a sense of style. It's very hard for computers to develop that style, at least today. And also taking care of people, especially as you get older or if you're sick. There are limits to what computers can do. So I think for many things, right, computers will be very good in analytical questions, database questions, and anticipating questions like that. But my guess is that the truly great creative aspects, there'll be a while.
But you do this all over the world, globally, right? In each country?
We've only done it in a couple. We did it here, we've done it in France, and we've done it in Britain, I believe. And so really only a few.
And are you seeing real results from these?
Yeah, what happens is that maybe you all know this, but for the average sort of person assumes that there's nothing new, right? The average person says, oh, nothing new is going to be invented anytime soon. But in fact, people are incredibly creative. And with the internet, you can be completely creative because you can literally know almost everything now in a way that you couldn't before. So I think we're going to have faster creativity, faster inventions, faster startups. In my industry, in tech, you're seeing faster IPOs, greater valuations. It's all happening faster, and it is in fact changing the society in a very good way.
Okay. Have you met these people?
Just right now.
Oh, okay. All right. How about we introduce ourselves quickly from the end? Yeah.
Hi, my name is Dae-yoon. It's a great honor. We make a service called Biscuit, and Biscuit is a mobile application that you can use to learn foreign languages. It could be Spanish or English. It could be anything. And we do this by having an embedded dictionary, multi-language dictionary in the application. And it has a great user interface that helps you actually learn the words.
And it runs on?
It runs on iOS and also Google. All platform. That shouldn't come up first, but yeah. Google.
Yeah, Android and iOS.
That's right, yeah.
A starts before I.
Hello, my name is Yeram Kwan of IM Lab, Interactive Media Lab. We deal with medical education platform and healthcare system. So as our first product, we introduced an interactive CPL simulator and heart exam. So it says, which enable more effective training for everybody, public people, to save more life. Yeah.
Excellent. Wonderful.
I'm Ju-hoon, the founder of Stubby Planner. Stubby Planner is a travel planning tool for young Asian backpackers like them.
Travel.
Yeah, travel.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And we are engineering team, tech startup. And as an engineering team, we believe connecting travelers and the recommendation system based on their live activities will make a huge disruption in travel industry. Maybe next version of TripAdvisor. Yeah.
Good. Perfect.
Hi.
Yes, sir.
My name is Chris Won. I'm CTO of Regin Entertainment. We are creating Regin Comics, the online cartoon service for mobile and web.
Okay,
so
good.
actually we released the Android version first on June and released the iOS and website.
Excellent.
So actually we are selling the exclusive comics to users using free-to-play business model like mobile and online games.
Good.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Hi, I'm Haeyeon Kim, and I'm CEO of Anything. And we connect things to people with service via internet, like Internet of Things, and our product is Plenty. Plenty is a small garden on your desk, and then you can connect your garden anytime, any place. Yeah.
Good. Okay, thank you.
A garden.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Do you have a question for Mr. Schmidt?
My question is a little bit different because my question is not about our product or service. My question is about culture. Yeah, I think the culture is one of the most important parts for every company and especially startups. So, how did you make Google's culture when you start Google? Yeah.
Well, the good news is that Larry and Sergey, when they founded Google, made it feel like a graduate school. And if you look around this university and you study the graduate schools, you'll discover that the people are young, they're very smart, they have new ideas, and the professors help them. But the ideas are from the students. They're not necessarily from the faculty. And so the trick, in my view, of culture is to have wise leadership, but allow the workers, allow the clever people to invent things without too much constraint. And we were able to do that particularly well. But I think the secret of Google was that we were willing to hire the smartest people and say, you can solve your problem, right? We'll help you solve your problem. And I like that model, as opposed to, I'm in charge and you have to do this and so forth. I don't think that produces as good an innovation as bottoms-up empowerment. And if I may, the Korean culture is fairly patriarchal and fairly hierarchical. And I think it's important that the culture here change to be more diverse, to include more women, and to include more bottoms-up and top-down.
Thank you.
You have a question?
So we are creating the online cartoon service. So it is difficult to spread culture content like comics to other countries. So when Google starts a new product or service in other countries that have different cultures, is there any strategy or a checklist that Google have? So, or
what we learned was that each country is different and there's no single rule. I would love it if you could build one product and distribute it to all 200 countries. But the reality is you do have to make some accommodations to cultural, societal views, the sort of traditional way in which people use it. It's worse in media because usually the content is licensed per country. And so you'll get a license for Europe, but you won't get a license for Korea or China. And I think that's a real problem because we want all the content out at the same time. So we've ended up having large teams whose job was to get content everywhere and get the platforms adapted to each of the local laws. And it's not just regulations, which can differ. In Korea, for example, there is a unique ID that you all each have, which is required by law. So we had to make changes to accommodate that. But the fact of the matter is, there's also cultural differences. And you want to make sure that your product feels like it's local, even if it's not. So my argument about Korea is that somehow K-pop has become a global standard, even though the people are singing in Korean. So congratulations. That's not going to work for many other kinds of applications. Like your travel application, it'll have to be localized to the language in the country. But I would also say that you should not define yourself as just Korea. I think you should define yourself as at least all Asia, each one of you.
As a tech company, tech startup, I have this question. What is most important thing to make the product what the market wants, not what we want as an engineer?
Well, actually, I disagree a little with that. Because what happens is if you go to traditional business school, they say, ask your customers what they want. But the customers won't know what can be invented. So I would rather ask the engineers what they would like to use, right? And I want my engineers to use the product, because then I know at least I have one customer, right? So in your case, again, a simple one is travel. The product you build had better be something that you like, right? That you enjoy, that you think works. You better be an expert in that product. You better know that yours is better and why it's better. If you somehow think you can let the customers tell you that, it doesn't work. You have to invent it. That's the genius of engineering.
Interesting. Yes.
My question is more about the business. We deal with quite innovative product stuff. I wonder, I think it is very difficult to forecast the new markets,
yes,
especially when we deal with some innovative products. But I think Google Glass is quite a successful project, as you mentioned. So I wonder, when you designed the project, Glass project, what was the most difficult decision you made, and what is the key success factor in this kind of a new market?
Well, Google Glass is a good example where one of our founders, Sergey, had an idea and partnered with a genius who invented the optics system that needed, but all of the previous attempts didn't work. So we had a brilliant engineer, right, who could build a new optics system, and we had a founder who wanted to build a new product that he just thought was interesting. And he wears it all the time, and he's worn it all the time. And he can tell you exactly why his product is better than anything else, and he loves it, and he fights for it. And I think that's how it really works. In order to really make a great company, you need to have a technological leap of some kind. You have to invent a new way of transportation or communication or interacting with people. And often those inventors are in a university. So if you're a business person, a good way to do this is to find an inventor, right, who needs some help. In my career, I worked at Sun Microsystems for 14 years, and it was 2 technical people and 2 business people, and they found each other. The business people wanted to run a business, and the technical people had no idea how to run a business, but they wanted their technology to get out there, and that created a great company for its time.
For all your inventions and innovations that you've achieved, what is your favorite?
I personally enjoy landing in a country and having my network work. I know this sounds pedestrian, but for 20 years I would land in countries and nothing ever worked, because the internet was pieces, and you had to fiddle with it, and it didn't quite work here, and it didn't work in Korea at all, and the Chinese blocked it, and we forgot about the country of Africa, and so forth. So I get a personal delight out of traveling the world where people have forgotten what it was like to have no connectivity. So for me, the history, the mobile phones plus the internet, and the ability to just communicate, which I think is a universal, is probably the thing that gives me the greatest personal enjoyment. I also enjoy, and I'm always shocked at the ability now, right, to wander around. You can't get lost anymore. You know, you used to show up in a country and you get lost, right? And you have to ask for directions. Well, now the Google Maps is so good, right? You just can't get lost. And so to me, the fact that Google Maps sort of works wherever I am is also an example of that. It's something that you take for granted now that wasn't true even 10 years ago.
Yes.
Nowadays in Korea, creative economy is huge, and entrepreneurship and startup is a big thing for all the students. I personally come from a professional company, a management consulting company before, and then it was a huge decision for me to quit and then start a company.
Yeah.
And what you actually haven't started the company. I mean, you haven't started Google, but you actually joined Google for big potential, and then you actually grew the company. And my question is, what do you think is the pros and cons for founding a company versus joining a company, joining a huge company for experience and then starting a company later?
Well, my experience with entrepreneurs is that the best entrepreneurs are going to build this company with you or without you. In other words, they're just going to do it. They wake up in the morning, this is what they think, they obsess about it, they do it from morning until night. They do nothing else. They just believe, right? So if you are that person, then you should do that. For the rest of us, you should find someone like that, right? Right? So do you have a burning desire, right, to do something? Then do it, right? And maybe I'll come help you, right? But you see what I'm saying? That's how it works. And there are so many, in order to have a successful company, we celebrate the founders, and that's very important, and they deserve all the credit. But the fact of the matter is, they need help. So when I joined Google, I liked Larry and Sergey a great deal personally, and I'd been through some things before. And they were willing to listen to me, and so we formed a very good partnership. And each of us brought different skills. Each of us brought a different strength. And I've since learned that if you look at the history of technology, there are almost no companies, technology companies, where it was just one person. Right? If you look at early Oracle, early Apple, early Sun, early IBM, there was a small team of people. Now, one person would ultimately come to iconify that company, but it was a team. And don't forget that. So you need a team, and a team of very smart people to help you, as everyone does.
Well, we'll open the floor to questions from all of you. Okay.
안녕하세요. 저는 방정우라고 합니다. 질문드리고 싶은 거는 아까 말씀해 주셨던 것 중에 좋은 회사를 차리기 위해서 테크놀로지컬 립이 필요하다 이런 말씀하셨었는데 지금처럼 그 기술이 굉장히 발전돼 있고 이런 상황에서 지금 뭐 구글의 창립자 세르게이 브린이나 레리 페이지 같은 경우에 다 대학원을 졸업을 했는데 대학원 과정에 있었는데 지금 생각하시기에 특히나 기술 컴퍼니, 소프트웨어 컴퍼니를 차리는데 그런 대학원을 진학하는 거가 어느 정도 중요하다고 생각하시는지 듣고 싶습니다.
I think it's important to have a proper education. There are people who think that somehow you don't need to go to college, and I think that's wrong. There are some people who need graduate school, and I think everybody benefits from more education. So Larry and Sergey were graduate students but did not finish their degree. I finished my PhD, but they're very well educated. So I think the standard should be, how educated are you? I'm a strong believer in more education is good. If you look, and if you disagree with me, take a look at the numbers. In most Western countries, more education has resulted in greater earnings. And in America, for example, the people who've not essentially had college degrees or have languished in global terms because they're not competitive. So I think that I'm a strong proponent of more education. I'm a strong proponent of more graduate education. At some point, you'll get tired of being in school and it's time to start your company. But I would be in school at least for a good long time.
Oh, you're talking to the best students in South Korea, Seoul National University.
Yeah. I expect every single one of you to found a multi-billion-dollar company.
나두리 씨 계세요? 나두리? Yes, go ahead.
Thank you for your wonderful time with us, Mr. Schmidt. I'm in my third year of studying business administration and computer science. Basically, nowadays, many startups tend to be merged by big corporations like Google or other before they get to grow. So here my question is, what is the important factor for sustainable growth for startups to equip?
Sustainable growth as a startup company.
I think it depends on what part of the industry you're in. We're in a situation now where if you can build a network of social activity of one kind or another, you can be successful without a lot of revenue. And there's always in our industry something that's very trendy like that. There are plenty of other businesses which are not as trendy, which are very good businesses. Let's think about privacy and security, right? Now that the US government and all the other governments are all busy worrying about each other, spying on each other, right? There's a great business opportunity, right there. Corporations and how they operate, changing the way they do their business, moving to cloud computing. Each of these are large areas. So what I would suggest when you think about a business, start by saying, what's something that's going to be true for a long time? So mobile, local businesses, the notion of knowing where something is, connectivity, technically what we call cloud computing, server-based computing, the transition to HTML5, so-called AJAX programming, things that you would study. All of those are systems which will be true for 5 or 10 years or maybe 20 years. You want to be in that, right? You don't want to be playing another game. And then within that, then you want to come up with your idea. And then you want to have investors who are patient. The most patient investors are always your family. So you always have to start with some patient investors who'll give you some time.
Thank you. 권민지님 계세요? 권민지?
First of all, thank you very much for your precious time. I'm Minji, and I'm studying in med school here. And as a startup company, capital is always a big issue, right? But then I think with investors, though, often the founders' opinions may conflict with those of the investors. And what do you think? And sometimes you can risk your philosophy or vision and what you're about to build, and you get lost in what you were originally thinking about. Mm-hmm. Well, I respect business and perspectives of the investors, but because they really think about the money, and it's all about the money when you're starting a business. But I think also it's so important to keep on to the dream and delivering the right message to the audience, the customers. And my question is, how would you advise the startups or the investors regarding this? And how does Google manage to retain this well-balanced partnership, as you mentioned before?
So the question of investing has been solved, I think, pretty well in venture capital. Right. We know that only 1 out of 10 companies becomes hugely successful. And the average time to liquidity, which is an event where you make some money, is 7 to 10 years. So if I'm an investor and I'm investing in your company, I have to have a long-term view. You have to say to me, Eric, it's going to take a decade. Are you willing to wait? And then you need to check my truthfulness. I need to check your commitment. And that's how it works. These are very long-term decisions. And so if you are looking for investing, make sure you get a good investor. As I said, the best investor is always your family. But maybe there's another investor who has also similar long-term patience. And I worry that the get-rich-quick scheme in investing is taken over. And people say, look, I gave you the money. I want it back in 2 years. It's not how it works. It takes a decade. It takes patience.
Hello, my name is Chi-Young Park, college student, a business major, not here, Korea University. And I'm a huge fan of Google. I've been using Google since 5th grade, 6th grade. And I realized that you are committing your company into more hardware and inventing Google Cars and Google Glass. And I'm realizing how much Google is making an impact into the world. And my question is that you're a huge advocate of technology, I realize. And what could be the downside of this growing technology, and how could we solve it?
What could be the downside of growing technology?
It's a good question. I don't think that it's just all good. So let me give you an example of a downside. I am concerned that this generation is not reading deeply. as I did when I was your age. That there's so many interactions, there's so many interruptions, there's so much distraction. Now, the good news is you're very good at parallel processing, you're very good at quick decisions and so forth. But I think there's a certain kind of wisdom built by deep reading. So that's an example. Another one that I'm concerned about is a loss of privacy. And there are many reasons why governments would prefer to know information, to publish that information, but ultimately, when that's done to the expense of your privacy, it's hard for governments to give you back that privacy. So that's another concern. Another concern I have is that we won't win the battle of a global internet, and that countries will begin to ring fence or isolate their internets. That the Korean government will say, we like our internet, we just don't like all that other internets, right? And I think the openness is very, very important. So Google is very committed to a free and open internet for that reason. So those are some concerns. It's traditional that the incumbents are threatened by new technology. It seems to me that a lot of the incumbents need to give some power to the next generation who want to do something new. Imagine if there were a law that prevented from each of whatever you did. Right? Well, in many countries, there are laws that were written by the incumbents that prevent startups, that prevent competition. Prices stay high. You know, we want more disruptive entrepreneurship, and we don't want premature regulation. So I worry about those things.
And all this is in his book, The New Digital Age. 김여운 씨 계세요? 김여운 씨?
저는 앞으로 행복한 프로그래머가 되는 게 꿈을 가지고 있는데 회장님께서 세계를 돌아다니면서 만났던 행복한 프로그래머들의 특징을 알 수 있을까 질문 드리고 싶습니다.
Well, you know, when I was your age, I was a full-time programmer, and I tried to avoid going to school unless it involved programming. So it must have been that I was a happy programmer, because I wasn't happy unless I was programming. So it seems to me now that you have so many more choices of languages and platforms and things than I did, that the love of programming itself is a good answer to your question. And I think that programming is largely about the exercise of mathematics and symbolic reasoning. So if you like that, programming is a great way to do it. There are many people who study physics and math who become programmers because they can get paid for doing it, they enjoy it, and it's a natural link.
네, 하얀 셔츠 입으신 분 일어나세요.
Hi, my name is Yu Sang-geun, and I'm studying literature in graduate school in this campus. And recently, I launched an education website with our other graduate students, which supplies philosophy and literature lectures to public. And we believe that it's very important to educate people, to make people think essential problems. For example, how to live a happy life in this country, in this age, because it's getting hard to live young people, and it's the most competitive country in the world. So we believe to make this goal, it's very important to make our lectures free to public. But as a company, as all the startup companies has this kind of problem, but as a company, we also have to has to earn profit. So I want to hear your advice how to achieve these two goals: public values and private profit at the same time.
Actually, we got that same question, many of them, through our Twitter account.
Sure, of
same
course.
question.
It's interesting that you mentioned Twitter. Twitter, Facebook, Twitter, Snapchat are of a generation of companies that have not made money initially. They've gone for audience. And then when they get a large enough audience, they can make money. Facebook today in California reported very good results. So based on more than 1 billion people in their network. So I think it's for you as a publisher, the most important thing to do is to have an audience, people. And my experience is if you get a very large audience, you can figure out a way to make money from them. So in the new economics of the internet, it's a fight for an audience faster, and then if you get that audience, then you can usually raise the money to eventually figure out a way to monetize. When Google was founded, the founders didn't really know how to make money at Google, but they knew they had great technology and they had users. And so they tried one approach and then another approach. They tried licensing the technology, everyone said no. So they began advertising, initially with a very simple system, and then in 2001 invented a very sophisticated system, which is the Google advertising of today. But had they had to have that plan on day they founded the company, I don't know that they would have made very much progress.
So if you look at your company, Google, what is the most profitable part of your business?
By far the most profitable are these text ads. And what happens, the text ads work because the person is searching for the product and we know that's a good signal to buy. And our computer algorithms using artificial intelligence pick the best ad for you, right? So if you say digital camera, it will show you a very specific kind of an ad. And advertisers pay us a great deal of money to show those ads. And the margins there are quite high compared to other advertising. It's better for the consumer, it's better for the advertiser, and we make more money. So it's a good everyone wins.
Okay. 송무빈 씨 계세요? Yes.
This gentleman, our guest has a question.
Hi, I'm Bubin Song from Ewha Women's University, and I'm majoring in English literature. Many portal services like MSN have faced defeat in Asian market, and
I haven't heard about MSN for a long time, but they must have really been defeated.
Definitely. And with very few exceptions, such as Yahoo Japan. And seeing from this, I think one of the most decisive factors for success is whether the firm adheres to its standardized or universal plan or gives autonomy to regional markets. And actually, Google's jolly good fellow, Meng, is a dear friend of mine. And when I asked him that, he said the answer actually is to mix those two. And so what is Google's strategy in the Asian market? And do you agree with Meng?
Meng is one of the most brilliant engineers at Google, so I always agree with Meng. And one day, Meng decided that he didn't like being called an engineer, so he changed his title to be a jolly good fellow, and such as Google. I think in the portal question, the portals were popular a decade ago, before the rise of Google Plus, Facebook, those sorts of technologies. Google search was not very good by comparison to where it is today. And so the idea of a portal, a gathering place, sort of an audience builder, is probably not where the future is. It's much more these specialized applications on mobile phones that you're seeing now. The way Google has addressed this is we've said that each country can adapt the Google experience based on culture. So in the Asian model, there is more demand for portals than there is in the United States. So we have more portal-like services here because that's what our consumers want. But I wouldn't say that we're a full portal here because we're not trying to be.
Yes.
Hi, I'm Niels. I'm from the Netherlands. I'm here as an exchange student. I have an Android phone. I hope so. I love it to death. But could you help me change my wallpaper? It's super complicated.
Yes, there is a command called set wallpaper. It's in the base menu. I can demonstrate it on my phone if you'd like. Okay, so we'll get, well, hang on. It says right there on the top. See, it says wallpaper, and then you can basically wallpaper from gallery, and there's a picture of me, and I'm going to set it there, right there. You see, it's not very complicated.
Well, in all seriousness, I do have a real question. So we see a lot of startups, and they're successful in a financial way. We see Instagram being taken over by Facebook for quite a large amount of money. But Instagram isn't really like a disruptive technology. It's just photo filters, and in 10 years probably...
It's disruptive for the teenage girls that use it.
Yeah, but like in 10, 20 years, will people remember Instagram as a great service like Google that changed the world? Do you agree that today it's hard to, as a startup, to bring disruptive technology to the market?
It's interesting because when Google was founded and when I joined, no one anticipated the role that Google would ultimately play. And I was perfectly happy to have all the success, but I didn't join for the eventual success. I enjoyed it. I joined it because it was fun, it was interesting, and so forth. The two founders of Instagram, right, who worked at Google, I might add, founded Instagram because they thought it was interesting. They had a new way that they wanted to do it. I don't think it's fair to Instagram or any other company to project what will happen over a decade. What I always like to think about is, if this is version 1, let's imagine what version 5 will be like, right? So a typical example, when the iPad came out and Apple invented the iPad, there were many, many, many criticisms of the iPad. But today, tablets, which include the iPad and the Android tablets, are outselling personal computers. If you had told me that when the iPad came out, I would have said, you're crazy. I don't think we know. But what we do know is that something which is addictive or useful can be extended, right? It can be made stronger and so forth. Now, Instagram is one of 20 examples that I could use. But my point is, let's assume that with success comes investment, and then the people are smart, and they'll make it stronger. And it's so competitive that if they don't, someone else will come in and take them away. So Instagram will be determined by how smart the leaders are, how much money they invest, how much they address the issues that they face, but I wouldn't call it one way or the other. What we do know just is that photos matter, right? Everyone here takes photos every day. Koreans love photography. So there's probably an opportunity for an Instagram competitor right here in the room, as an example.
Quickly, one last question. We have a very important question from Hwang Gyusang. Hwang Gyusang-님.
Hi, I'm Kyusang, and I'm really a big fan of Google.
Thank you.
Yeah. As far as I know, I've heard that Google is facing a lot of legal issues all over the world, and I'm curious about what is the driving force that makes Google to try new things all the time and change the world in spite of the legal issues?
I think in Google's case, it comes from the founders. The founders have said that they wanted an unconventional company and that we should do things differently. And because Google has money and has success and has an audience, we can, in fact, take on traditional models. I'll give you an example of books and book scanning. For US students, the ability to get access to books in your dorm room or at home and not have to go to the library is a huge improvement in your daily lives. But that took some courage and investment on the part of Larry Page, in this case, to push very, very hard for that against many legal challenges. So the good news is we really do prize innovation, and we will continue. We won't always get it right, but I think it's inside of the way the company was formed. And by the way, if you form a company, you could do the same thing. It's not unique to Google.
You're looking at you don't look like an unconventional or unusual person. Were you?
You know, in Asia, you're supposed to wear a tie and dress up.
So in your college days, would you consider yourself unusual back then?
Let's not go there. let's just say that I had a really good time in college.
Okay. Well, I think we're going to have to wrap up here today. Any last words that you'd like to?
I think the most important thing, and I think we see this with our audience here, is that this is a great time to be graduating from a top university. And the reason it's a great time is that the barrier to entry to starting something is the lowest it's ever been. You and you can just found a little company and just try it. Right? Now is the time to try it. When you're older and you have other commitments, family commitments, traditional jobs or so forth, or maybe you just don't have the energy that you do now, maybe you won't do it. So my core message now would be take an idea, try to convince the person on your left and your right that it's exciting, and go for it. And if you don't have an idea, look around, figure out who is the smartest person around, right? And work with them. Because they need some help and they need you. Thank you very, very much, and thank you.